Good morning and welcome to KJoy 98.3. I am Tommy Shevlin, the Nassau County PBA President, and you are listening to Police Talk. Today I am honored to be joined by Michelle Panetta, who is a founder of Beyond the Badge, New York. Good morning, Michelle.
Good morning, Tommy.
Would you mind telling our listeners a little bit about yourself?
Of course. So I actually started as a Nassau County probation officer for 6 years. I recently retired in September of this past year. I currently am an adjunct professor at Nassau Community College, and I am a senior anti-money laundering investigator.
That must be fun.
It is.
That sounds very interesting.
It is.
So did you say you also were a probation officer?
Yes.
And was that on Long Island?
Yes, I worked in Nassau County.
How long did you do that for?
From 2016 up until 2020.
All right. And I guess you realize that you had other things in your career that you would like to get involved with.
Yes. Sadly, in 2018, I was involved in a line of duty incident, and then I had COVID twice and medical and stuff from that. And I just realized with having the charity, I had bigger dreams to chase after.
And your husband, Chris Panetta, is recently retired from NYPD. He was a detective.
Yes. So Chris actually retired last April. He had 21 years with the NYPD and retired out of the advocate's office.
So as you know, and just so my listeners know, I grew up with Chris. We went to the same high school in Valley Stream Central. So I know Chris for a very long time. And he's one of the best guys out there. He was a great cop. And I'm very, very honored and happy to be a part of your organization and be able to watch all of the great things you guys are doing. So why don't we start off by telling our listeners about Beyond the Badge New York, how it was founded, why it was founded, and what it's all about.
So Chris and myself founded Beyond the Badge New York in 2019. Sadly, in January of 2019, Chris's childhood friend and fellow NYPD officer from the 115 and 106 precinct, Nicholas Mancaroni, died by suicide. And after losing Nick, in the following months, more officers from the NYPD had died by suicide. And we started to realize that something needed to be done. We weren't exactly sure what we could do, but we came up with Beyond the Badge New York, and our goal was to raise suicide and mental health awareness, let officers know that it's okay to be okay, and give them the strength that they need to come forward for help. We figured as officers, trying to reach out to other officers would be easier because they know us from the job, and they know that we've been through some tough stuff ourselves. Chris is a 9/11 first responder. Like I said, I had a line of duty incident in 2018, so we know the struggles that can come forward sometimes for us.
Just like I said that I went to high school with Chris, I also went to high school with Nick. So I do know him personally. It was a tragedy, once again, that struck not just Valley Stream and Nassau County and Long Island. It struck the police world because, unfortunately, suicide is it's an epidemic, it's a pandemic, it's whatever you want to call it. It's a big problem, and it's about time that we start talking about it. In 2019, when Nick died by suicide, we had around 249 police officers in the United States die by suicide. That's 3 times more than being killed by a line of duty, a felonious event, being killed by a bad guy or a bad girl. That's what that means. And that is unbelievable. The statistics show that police officers have 3 times more of a chance of dying by suicide than getting killed by a bad person.
Yeah. And nowadays, especially with the pandemic, the job and just the stresses, it's a lot harder sometimes for officers to be able to address what is going on. Sometimes we just have to kind of bury down what we're feeling and just continue on with the next day. And over time, especially like something with, COVID and the pandemic, it's just been even harder for people, for sure.
Absolutely. Listen, like I said, to my listeners in the past few radio shows, and as you know, my background is mental health. I was a counselor at Employee Assistance for over 4 years, and I dealt with this head on with police officers and first responders on a daily basis. There are a lot of struggles out there, and it's about time that we need to normalize mental health and wellness. We need to normalize getting help when you're struggling mentally. The same way that, like I keep saying, if you're struggling physically, if you hurt your leg at work or your back, you go to the doctor. You go for physical therapy. You get surgery if you need be. And you might be out of work for some time. And the jobs are okay with that. They give you the time needed to recuperate, recover, and get back to being a full-duty police officer. We need to view mental health the exact same way, because things like PTSD, PTSD is a brain injury, just like an injury to your body parts. And we need to give our police officers the opportunity to get healthy again, and they can get healthy again. And that's why I am honored to have you here, and I really, really, really thank you and Chris for all of the hard work that you guys have been doing over the past few years with Beyond the Badge New York. I love watching everything that you have coming up, all the upcoming events, what you guys are trying to do. We'll talk about that in a minute. But getting out there to the police community has been a struggle in recent years. And I see things starting to change. I see us starting to look at mental health and helping break the stigma together. And you guys are playing a vital role in that.
Yeah, I think now more so than ever, more people are willing to have that conversation. And I believe that the more officers that do come together and are willing to show that they stand behind the mission of breaking the stigma allows other officers who, one, may be hesitant to change their mindset on it. It gives them the opportunity to maybe understand it a little better. But I also feel like it really gives officers who might be struggling that tiny bit of hope and strength to say, you know what, we have people here who believe in this mission, or they believe in breaking the stigma. I can go to them. I can maybe use them as my outlet for help. And it really starts with us. Like, honestly, we're in the locker room every day with each other. We're in a car every day with each other. That is the time to have certain conversations. You spend more time at work than you do at home sometimes. So you're really going to build that foundation with the person you work with. So if you know that you can trust them, or you know that they have an understanding, or they've been in a certain type of situation themselves, they're going to be more comfortable to open up. I mean, it's definitely difficult to speak about. I had my own struggles after my line of duty incident, and then I realized that my struggle could really be the assistance for somebody else's journey. We say all the time the 3 hardest words to say is, I need help. But honestly, those are the most courageous words that you can ever say. So putting it out there for more people to break the stigma and more officers to talk about it really is how this is going to break. It's getting officers to come together.
Yes, and the interesting thing is that that's what we do for a living. We help people. We're the ones that answer the call, whenever someone's in need. But it's very hard when we're the one that needs help, like you just said. And yes, we are around each other like a family, but because of the old school thinking, the old school mentality, police officers are afraid to be viewed as weak, because we are the tough people out there that are willing to do things that nobody else is willing to do. We're not superheroes. We are very brave for what we do, but we're human. And that's what I think a lot of people have to start to realize. We're human, and we deal with a lot of bad things. We deal with a lot of negativity on a daily basis, and we see things that nobody should ever have to see unless you're watching a movie. And that definitely has a toll on us over time. And if we can break the stigma within the community, within the precincts, the police department, and we can have each other asking each other are you okay? Because yes, like you said, nobody wants to say, I need help. So I feel like we need to also have each other be able to say, are you okay? I know maybe you're going through a divorce, or maybe you have a sick child, or maybe you just lost a loved one, a family member. Is there anything that I can do for you? We joke around about a lot of crazy things out there, and we have a sick sense of humor as police officers. But the reason for that is because it's not normal what we see and witness.
It's a defense mechanism.
Absolutely. And we don't know how else to communicate how we are feeling. Yes. And I really think that we have to get past the old school mentality where, if somebody's struggling or they're jammed up and they're inside, they don't have their firearms, people walk by them. Like this happened to me when I was in trouble years back, and I went through my struggles, and I was working inside restricted duty. Police officers just walk right by you and they avoid you like you have the plague. And I'm not saying that it's their fault, because it's not. It's a very uncomfortable situation because nobody knows what to say. And I do feel it's not even just what to say. What happens if you ask somebody, are you okay, and they actually say no?
Then
What
what do you
happens
do?
if somebody actually says, yes, I am thinking about killing myself? What do you do then? That's the biggest concern that I feel police officers have, and that's why what you guys are doing is amazing, and training is what we need. Everybody needs training. We need to raise awareness, and we need to educate ourselves on how to help each other.
No, I 100% agree with that. And that is the biggest part of it. I think we want people to come forward and we want them to ask for help. But it's like you said, we know how to help the general public. And that's the ironic part about this. When the general public calls for our help, we know to run in, do what we need to do, and to help them. But when another officer can possibly say, yes, I am feeling a certain type of way, I am thinking, of possibly hurting myself, we don't know how to react quite to that because we know what could potentially come from it. So we're hesitant sometimes to react or to maybe tell somebody else that we think somebody is in trouble and whatnot.
Well, when you say that we're hesitant because of what could come of that, just explain a little bit more what you mean about that.
So there's a huge fear for any officer if they are struggling to come forward and say that they need help because they're afraid that their guns are going to get taken away, that they are going to get put on a desk. And a lot of people don't realize that with that comes maybe no overtime, which is a change in pay, which can cause stress at home. And, it kind of like snowballs in a sense. And a lot of people think it's not that big of a deal, but our shields don't define us. We're more than officers. But when you're on the job for a very long time, that shield becomes a whole part of you. And to have, things change and to kind of like you said, people treat you differently. Not because maybe they want to, it's like they don't know how to act, but you do get treated differently. And when you're already feeling upset and you're feeling anxious and you're dealing with different things, to now be treated differently by people who you work with, you feel like the outsider. And it just makes everything that much harder. So with that, so many people will say, I got this. I'll deal with it by myself. I'll figure it out. And then it gets to a point where they can't figure it out anymore. And then that's where, then we lie in a different place.
Yes. And a lot of people, when you're struggling, possibly your marriage or your relationship is coming near an end, and possibly financially, you might be losing your home. And now you think if you ask for help or somebody knows what's going on, now you potentially also can lose your job.
Yeah.
A lot of people are worried, am I going to lose my job? So what do? As police officers, we do what we do best. We put on a mask. Yep. We wear a mask, and that's what we were trained to wear a mask. We were the type of people, that's why we are great at what we do, because not everybody can do this. Not everybody can go give a death notification, to a family that maybe just lost a loved one, maybe even a child. And there's times when I had to do that, and I felt like crying right along with the family. But we can't do that. We have to be professional. So you wear a mask, and that's how you're taught to make split-second decisions. And then you have to just forget about it and move on to the next call, like it never happened. So when you do that over and over and over again, you get used to acting professional and being who the job wants you to be. And unfortunately, it's great at work. It allows us to be the best at what we do, but it's killing us personally, because we don't even know sometimes when someone sitting right next to us is struggling. Now, if you don't mind, I know that you guys were very close with Nick, and he was at your wedding weeks before this even happened, that he died by suicide. Were there signs?
It's so hard to tell, because you look back and you think to yourself, what changed? What changed in 2 weeks? And like you said, Chris and I got married January 5th, so Nick was at our wedding, and we came home from our honeymoon on January 22nd, and Nick died on January 25th. And I remember after Nick passing away, we literally looked at every piece of wedding video, wedding pictures, sent messages to everybody at the table to say, did he say something? Was something wrong? What happened?
That's the cop in you guys.
You start to try to investigate what happened, like you're going to solve this big crime or situation. And
I remember asking Chris, like I said, Chris was his friend since they were, oh my God, I don't even know, 14 maybe. And, Chris shared some things that Nick had gone through, but it's anything like the rest of us have gone through. We've all been in relationship situations. We've all been in financial situations. We've all been in job situations. We've all had, stresses and different things that we've been through in our careers that we've all gotten through. So were there signs? No, there really weren't any signs that we would have thought were any different than anything that Chris and I have gone through. So it was hard because I remember being at work and I was on the phone with Chris and we were talking about basic household stuff, bills and, everything else. And I remember Chris hung up the phone and all of a sudden Chris called right back and I was like, what, what did we forget to talk about or whatever? And it was a completely different tone in Chris's voice. And till this day, I can literally hear Chris in my head, telling me about Nick. And I just remember being like, Nick who? Like, it wasn't even clicking in my head when he kept saying Nick. And, I was just, I stood there for a second. I was with my partner and I stood there for a second and I was like, wait, what's happening? And as the days just kept going, I literally just remember Chris being like, what did I miss? What didn't I see? And Chris and him would talk all the time, through text and everything else. And we would go back through text messages and there was nothing that made us think that this was going to happen. Never in a million years did anybody ever think that this would be Nick.
And you know what? Listen, and obviously you can't go back in time and you can't make things right. But I will tell you, you guys have made a tragedy into something very positive because that's how Beyond the Badge New York was created. And, and I know Nick is looking down and he's definitely very proud of all of the work that you guys are doing and keeping his memory alive. And in honor of him, how many cops and first responders and people in general that are being saved because of this. So that's the one great thing is the motivation and the drive and the passion that it has given you. Yeah. And look, there's a future ahead, and maybe one day we will cut these numbers down because 2019 was a rough year all around. Like I said, almost 250 police officers in the United States died by suicide. NYPD had over 7 alone that year. And now, fast forward, the last few years, the numbers have gone down a little bit, but I believe that that's due to COVID. I believe that during COVID, first responders do what we do best, and we get to work. We go day in and day out. We do what we have to do, and we don't really have time to settle down and think about what we just witnessed for the last year or 2 years. I'm concerned as a mental health provider that there still is a bubble that will burst one day from COVID and from all of the responses and all the death that we had. Not just loved ones, that almost everybody was touched by COVID, but even on a day-to-day, taking these people to the hospital knowing that they're not going to make it. It was a rough 2 years. And this year, now the numbers are up to, we're at about 49 police officers in the United States died by suicide already. So this is something that, unfortunately, now that they keep statistics, it's starting to become very consistent. And we need to drive those numbers down. And the only way to do that is organizations like Beyond the Badge New York and Blue Help. Blue Help actually has this website that I'm actually looking at right now. I know Karen Solomon personally. She's a personal friend, and I thank her also for all of their hard work and dedication. She has the statistics up and running on Blue Help's website for suicides, not just for police officers, but for first responders. And that you could break it down by year, by gender, by job, state. So unfortunately, we have to keep track of this stuff because if you don't acknowledge it, then there's no way to combat it. So listen, instead of just talking about all of the doom and gloom stuff, let's talk about how do we get out of this? How do we break the stigma? Tell me about Beyond the Badge. What are some events, seminars, things that you guys have coming up that will help, raise awareness?
So one of the biggest things that officers have said to us is they don't get a ton of time to just decompress, do things for them, do things with their friends, their kids. So we have designed events that have allowed for that. We have in May 15th in the Seaford train station, we do a Hot Rods for Heroes car show, which allows people to come out, bring their cars, hang out for the day. We have a touch-a truck so kids can come and play on all the police cars. It's a great day for people to just spend with friends, family, their kids. We do a cigar night, which is June 2nd this year at Westbury Manor. The cigar night is great because it gives a guy's night out, technically. is exactly what it is. It's a night out to just have fun, smoke some cigars, eat, and forget the stresses of the job for a day. Our biggest thing that we do in September is Strikeout Suicide. So Strikeout Suicide is something that I actually love. It is a softball tournament that different departments play in to, one, raise suicide and mental health awareness, but to also bring everybody together. So NYPD plays in it, Nassau plays in it, Nassau Sheriff, Suffolk County Corrections. They all come out to play. Last year we had 165 cops that played in the game. MTA played as well, Port Authority, and it's 165 guys playing in this game that allows you to know that if you work in one of these departments, one of these guys are there to help. They all stand behind the mission. More and more people keep wanting to play each year, which is great because it's more officers to help raise awareness. But the special touch to Strikeout Suicide, we honor 6 officers who've died by suicide. So last year, we had Inspector Malini, Chief Silks, Lieutenant Erdman from Nassau PD, and their families come. And you know what? It just gives the families a time to know that no matter what happens, it does not matter how they died. It matters the time that they gave to the job, what they did with their life in the 15, 20 years of service. And it allows their kids to know that they were heroes then, they're heroes now, and there always will be a hero regardless of the situation. So Strikeout Suicide is definitely one of my favorite. We have a family day for all the cops to just come hang out with their families and their kids. We really try to make our events, like I said, very family geared and friend geared. We're working on a bunch of different workshops and seminars this year because, like you said, education is the key to this whole thing. So we have a financial wellness seminar which allows officers to come and get that financial, assistance that they need if they are struggling. Instead of waiting until you retire to plan, let's get you planning in ahead of time. Let's get you planning in the middle where maybe you have some credit card debt and you need to figure out how to move things around. So we have financial seminars. We have a post-critical incident seminar for people who have been through traumatic incidents, to help them through the things that they have been through. And we're also focusing on a seminar for officers who have military experience, because now with a lot of things going on overseas, a ton of officers are being sent down Washington and, being sent out that when they do come back, there is that adjustment period. We're not saying you're not okay, but we're saying that we just want to reintegrate you a little bit to make sure that you have a really smooth transition.
Absolutely, and that's you're dealing with the stress of the job day to day as a police officer, and then being in the military, it just adds to it. So, listen, I want to thank you for 2 things that you just mentioned and elaborate a little bit on it. The families, right? So, I believe it's a wonderful thing keeping the families involved because, like I was talking about earlier about cops wearing masks at work. The one time that they take their masks off, and sometimes it's not a great thing because they are struggling, is at home. So if we can educate the families, I feel the families will see signs. And if we educate families, I think that will help us. The family might know they're struggling, and maybe now they're not scared that if they call someone or tell someone that their loved one is going to lose their job or their pension. So that's a big thing right there is training and educating the families, keeping them included, and honoring the families who are suicide survivors of our unfortunate police officers who died by suicide is an unbelievable thing because unfortunately the families that are honored are from line of duty death, and they don't honor suicide death. And I know that this is something that Blue Help is pushing, and I hope that one day when we're still around that suicide will be considered line of duty, because I believe that it 1,000% should be, because you can't tell me that the job doesn't change you, affect you mentally.
Absolutely. And one thing I wanted to add, too, that we also do for the families, we actually started a scholarship in Nick's name for any high school student or undergrad and college student that their law enforcement parent died by suicide. So you made a good point. When we lose an officer, the family takes that hit. And it's something that it's a different kind of journey, and it's a journey that takes a very long time to get through. So we started the scholarship to help alleviate some type of costs. We also provide resources and support to the family. So every time an officer does die by suicide, we make sure to reach out to the family, get them to events, get them to meet other families that are going through the same type of situation, because that's really the best way to heal. It's very difficult to talk to somebody who's been through a line of duty death versus somebody who's died by suicide. We don't like to say that it's different. It's just a different type of journey.
Absolutely. And I don't like to focus on, especially with suicide, how people died because of the stigma. To me, it's how they lived, and they lived as police officers. They dedicated and risked their lives every day. They put a bulletproof vest on and went out there to keep the community safe. So I feel that our communities and all of us owe it to each other and to them, to honor them, remember them, and not forget their families. Their families shouldn't feel ashamed by how their loved one died. So I really think that keeping the families involved is a great thing, and I thank you once again for that. How can our listeners reach you guys, Beyond the Badge New York?
You can follow us on social media, Beyond the Badge NY on Instagram and Facebook. And we have our website, beyondthebadgeny.org, but we are actually in the process of opening up a flagship location, or headquarters, for lack of better words, in Massapequa Park. So that is coming.
Wow,
in
that's
a few
exciting.
Weeks. Yes, it's coming in a few weeks.
That's
We've
amazing.
Kept it under wraps until right now.
Good for you guys.
Yep. So social media, our website, or you could always stop in and see us in Massapequa Park.
Thank you for that. Just to speak real quick to our listeners out there, if there are any police officers out there struggling, there are employee assistance for all police departments. I know Nassau County, the police department has an employee assistance that you can reach out to, 516-573-5050. We also have peer support out there. There are cops out there that are there to help. So please, I just want you to know that you are not alone out there. We get it, and we are here to help you. This is KJoy 98.3. I am Tommy Shevlin, Nassau County PBA President, and you are listening to Police Talk. Have a great week.